Hey, folks, I hope you're having a fantastic day today. So, there comes a time when you just want to do something and sometimes you fake it, but do I deserve it? I don't know. But before I talk about that, let me introduce you to my guest today. Her name is Armida Espinosa, and she is an author. She is an author of a book called Brave Lulis Learns English. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If I didn't, she'll pronounce it correctly when she tells us the name of the book. We're going to talk about that imposter syndrome. So, again, what exactly is imposter syndrome? Do you know? I had the wrong idea about imposter syndrome. And I've had this topic on before. In fact, not too long ago, and I learned a lot. And I learned even more with Armida. So please sit back, listen, enjoy, watch the podcast. And again, thank you very much for always being here and supporting the channel. Today's focus, what I would like to focus in on is what I just kind of mentioned about that imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
So a couple of things is maybe how we can welcome and befriend that imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And then maybe understanding the impact of negative self-talk, all that doubt and that does to us in the long run,
Yes.
the cost, or I think as you had put it before, exploring the hidden costs of doubt and addressing that confidence crisis, because a
Yes.
lot of people do have a crisis in confidence. And I am one that it took many years for me to realize that I had a fear of success. So I held myself back from taking chances or taking opportunities. Let's jump in and talk about how we can welcome and befriend imposter syndrome. And before you really get into that, can you tell us what is imposter syndrome? Because I think a lot of times people think that's something different. They think that you're pretending and faking your way through it, whereas it's kind of that, but it's almost more of a why am I here? I don't deserve this kind of thing.
Yeah, I would suspect there's a host of um, thoughts that could go behind, that can be behind imposter syndrome and what that is for everybody. There's those of us that are feeling like, what am I doing here? I don't belong, and you're looking around and everybody looks comfortable. And they're part of the conversation, and your mind is going, no, you have nothing to contribute. What are you doing here? But then there is the other side that you don't know. I mean, you're not even there. I mean, for me, it has started since when I was a child in first grade.
Mm.
And I started hearing this little voice in my head, telling me that I wasn't smart. And that started in first grade, and it stayed with me through high school. And so that negative talk got louder and louder. And the more I listened to it, the less my confidence went further and
Yeah.
further down. So, there's a slew of ways that you could feel as an imposter. And that's very, yeah, just a number of ways.
Okay, I'm gonna play psychiatrist. I'm going to ask you. There has to have been an outside, um, call it an influence or something, that a circumstance that caused you to think negative about yourself at that early age. Do you recall? Was it something where, maybe with boys in elementary school, they're picking teams to play on the softball team, and you get picked last or second to the last, and then you start doubting and feeling negative.
Right.
Is there anything like um, that you recall at that young age that
I
caused you to
do.
have these doubts about yourself?
I do, and that's what my story is. The children's book that I wrote. I remember vividly, like it was yesterday. First day of school, first grade. We had moved into a new neighborhood, so I didn't know the teacher, I didn't know any of the children. But the teacher pulled me back to the table at the back of the room and tested me on my ABCs, because that's what we teachers do. And I was just having to recite my ABCs. I got stuck at G. Now, I don't know if I did know my ABCs, or, you know how you're saying you're reciting the ABCs, and then there's a moment where you stop at G and then you move on. I couldn't move on. I all of a sudden it was blank. I didn't know what came after G. And it was such an embarrassing moment for me. I mean, here the teacher's writing something on a piece of paper, and she's probably writing that I'm not very smart. And and I felt ashamed. And so it was just me. It was all me because the teacher was very kind and very nice. And I wasn't a second language learner, even though Spanish was my primary language, because I was the youngest of six. So I knew English going into kindergarten, maybe not high academic, but I knew enough. I knew English. But that moment was a very pivotal moment for me because this little voice just started working on me, and um, and I listened to it. I'm 6 years old. What do I know? I mean, I'm looking around, and all the other kids look like they belong, and
Yeah.
like they know, you know, and so this little voice started you're not smart and you need to figure it. And I started thinking to myself, I need to figure it out. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through this? And the little voice said to me, just do the best that you can. Don't ask for help.
That's that thing, is that inner voice that says, don't ask for help. And maybe it's out of fear and embarrassment, but at that age, you I'll say you instinctively know what embarrassment is
Yes.
and fear. So
Yeah,
you
and shame.
refrain from calling it hate, yes, and being ashamed. So you refrain from calling attention to yourself, and part of that is don't raise your hand to ask a question.
Don't
And
make
I
eye
have experienced
contact.
that as well.
Don't make eye
Yes,
contact with the teacher.
yeah,
Because when the
yeah.
teacher's at the front of the board and she's giving a lesson and she's asking questions, if you make eye contact, she's going to call on you.
And even when you're at that age, even if you're paired up with someone, a friend, to do an assignment, and you're both scared, one of you is going to push harder for the other one to go ask, and because one is always going to, I think, win out on that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that did happen because in my mind I was thinking I didn't know any of the kids,
mm,
and not only did I not want the teacher to know I didn't know more, I should have things that I should have known. At least I was thinking. I didn't know at 6 years old, I didn't know that learning was incremental. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was things that I wasn't going to know, that was expected. I didn't know that.
yeah,
All I know is the shame and the embarrassment that I felt, and I needed to do whatever I could to not find myself in that position. It never occurred to me to study, like, learn your ABCs, and just really hit the books. And all I kept thinking to myself is, what am I going to do? And the little voice said, do the best you can and don't ask for help. And that seemed like really good advice at 6 years old.
that's your 6 year old friend telling you, "Hey, this is so important. Could you let everybody know the name of your book? Because you said that this story, this part, this is in your book."
Yes, it is. The title is Brave Lolis Learns English. And it's about that experience, that moment. And of course, it was a children's book, so it had to have a happy ending in 20 pages, which I gave it a happy ending in 20 pages. However, that was not the case for me because what happened, I listened to that voice, and that voice kept getting louder. And so at the end of first grade, I was academically behind. I didn't know
Yep.
what else
And
to do in second grade. I stayed there. I just kept covering up, so I literally stayed in that under the radar through high school. And every
wow.
year it got worse. I fell further and further behind academically. The shame was greater, the embarrassment was greater, and I all I could do was just muster whatever I could. Did I did I cheat? Oh yeah. I cheated. I mean, what else are you gonna do? You're in first grade, you're in second grade. Now when I speak about the book, I said, of course, people go, did you cheat? I go, of course I cheated. You know,
You were resourceful.
I was resourceful. I had to do what I had to do. So
Oh,
it didn't have so I ended up graduating reading at probably a third or fourth grade level. And all I could think of was I just need to just stay under the radar and just
yeah.
get out of high school and be done with that.
I'm putting a smile on my face and kind of chuckling inside because this is a whole other topic is our education system letting kids pass just like that.
Yes, yes,
So
and I
that's a
preface it by saying, it was a different time.
yes, yes, it was.
I'm 69, so it was a different time. I mean, now, because I actually became a teacher. Go figure.
You wanted to stop kids like you.
But it was a different time, and now they have a slew of services and assessments, and I mean, it's hard for a student to fall under the radar and not get noticed now. I mean, but back in
Yeah.
the 60s, it was quite easy, unfortunately.
The interesting thing, and I know that we're loosely on our topic, but I think this ties into it because this is also understanding the impact of the negative self-talk and exploring, like I said, the hidden cost of doubt and stress. But like I said, that was a different time, and this is today's time. There are many more resources, but also at the same time for the younger kid, well, not even the younger generation, because things move at such a fast pace. Things can explode or exponentially get blown out of proportion by ourselves or even by others, or that little thing that we look at somebody else and say, wow, they're so lucky they have, I'm not like that, I wish I was, instead of realizing that they may have some the similar issues, but we're just looking at one positive
Yes.
aspect of their life where we can look at inward to ourselves and have that same positive effect for ourselves and for others.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I agree. Today now our students are bombarded with so much, and they're always comparing themselves with everybody
Yeah.
else. And so they have that to deal with. I mean, back in the 60s, my world was pretty small. And even with that, I managed to, to do harm to myself.
Uh, but you're still here and you have found your way through it.
you know, Teachers have a tendency to say, thank God children are resilient. And I think to myself, I think we do a disservice by saying that because
Yeah.
I really think, are we kind of just brushing it off and saying, they'll get by, they'll pull through, and we minimize the experiences that they're having because we just assume they're resilient. And I'm sure people said I was resilient, and I think when I started writing this book and all of it, all the emotions came out to think of what I must have gone through for 12 years. That
Yeah. Well,
I think to myself no, I wasn't resilient. I wasn't resilient. I didn't even know what the word was in first grade, second, third. I didn't learn that word till probably in high school. But no, so I wasn't resilient. I didn't have the skills, the strategies to work through it.
um, you're so right about that, and I think that word resilience, we're adults are using it in a different way for an excuse for kids, and like I said, it perpetuates the problem or the issue that they're having with their um, self-esteem and things like that. And like I said, we'll say, oh, they'll get over it. Where that resilience is, no, I think knowing what you have to do to to correct or to continue and to be better. I think how I look at resilience is I know what I have to do, other than I'm going to fake it and I'm going to get by. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get by. And that to me is not
No,
resilience,
it's not.
doing what it takes to get by.
Yeah, correct, correct. I mean, we have to teach our children strategies to be resilient strategies, so
Hmm.
that they could push through, right, and just and not give up, right. And so I now go around and I preach. I preach the concept of, we're all lifelong learners. It doesn't matter how old you are. You will always find yourself in a situation where you're going to be learning something. And when you're learning something new, more than likely it's going to be a little difficult. And
Hmm.
so we all will have that voice that pops up in our heads and says, okay, this is something that you probably are not going to learn. It's, all of us. A first grader, at 69, I'm trying to learn how to play piano. I sit down at the piano, and the minute I sit down, that voice just starts. Like, what are you doing? This, you're too late. You should have done this when you were younger. Why are you doing this to yourself? I mean, and so the minute that little voice starts, I literally have to just switch it and tell myself learning to play piano is easy and fun. And because that's what's going to keep me there practicing.
Yes, and I can say I fully understand, because when it comes to foreign language, I want to learn something, then I go, forget it. That's why I was at forget it. I'm just going to use the app, and it's going to listen and it's going to just translate it for me.
Yeah.
Rather than saying that this is fun and it's an experience and I'm going to grow personally
Yes.
and be satisfied with my personal growth.
Yeah. It's interesting how we will give value to the voice when it's telling us you can't learn something. And we can, oh yeah, it's correct. You're right. I can't learn, right? We give value to that, and yet we're hesitant to say learning German is easy and fun. And you just kind of go, well, why are you lying to yourself? Well, isn't the other one a lie as well?
Yeah.
I mean, it may be difficult to learn German, but can you do it? Eventually, you will if you just stick with it, right? So it's like, why are we so quick to put down the, oh, you're faking, you're lying to yourself that learning German is easy and fun. Well, I could be lying to myself that German is hard to learn.
Yeah. Give it a go. Try it out. Try anything.
Just stick with it, right? Just push through it, right?
Yeah, I think also maybe many people think that, well, if I'm not going to, I can't, because in their head they're thinking, oh, I have to be an expert at that. Well, nobody says you have to be super, super proficient at that foreign language or playing the piano. You're there to learn. Maybe you learn a song. I'm playing. All right, you did it. Now you move on. I'm going to learn another song. This is fun.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a building block. Pretty soon you're building upon the skills that you're gaining and learning. And before you know it, you might be that expert.
Yeah, I mean, how did we learn to walk? We didn't just, one day stand up and start walking. I mean, we kept falling, we tried and we kept falling and we tried and we kept falling. And then eventually we got it, right? Riding a bike. I mean, there's so many things in life that, have taken time to learn. And
Yes.
yet we forget about that.
Uh, my learning experience with that, give you my little short story on swimming. And I had to have, it was maybe first grade. I was in a foreign country at the time, so it was kind of like if you remember the Olympics, if people are old enough to remember the Olympics, the Eastern Bloc and countries where they pull kids out of their families to make them an expert in jujitsu or gymnastics. So I went
Mm-hmm.
to school that was similar to that.
Oh, okay.
And I remember the question was basically, why are you on the edge of the pool? Why do you know how to swim? I said, yeah. And the guy picked me up and threw me in the deep end. I had no idea how to swim. And
Oh,
that's, I think, things that can happen is you have that self-doubt, but you're so embarrassed to face it. You lie when somebody asks you, and you're going to be put in a situation that could
Yes.
be either dangerous or you're really going to make an embarrassment out of yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Trust me, going through 12 years of school, that was my nightmare. That I remember in middle school or even in high school, where you would walk into like a history class, and the teacher would say, "Okay, everybody, open up your books," and everybody's going to read a chapter, or I should say, read a paragraph. And they would start with the first student at the front of the desk in the first row, and they would just make their way all the way through the whole classroom, and everybody had to read a paragraph. Talk about a scary hour during class, because I would count how many students were in front of me, and then count the paragraphs, and then just practice that paragraph over and over to make sure that I could read it without messing it up. And and I wasn't paying attention to anything that was read before me. And then once I read my paragraph and got through it, I was so relieved. I was completely lost for the rest of the chapter. So
Yeah, you forgot to pay attention to what you're supposed to be listening to.
yeah, I did. I needed to practice that paragraph to make sure that that I was going to be able to read it well and not fumble. And God forbid there was a word that I didn't know in that paragraph. Then what you do is you either cough, or you mumble. You mumble the word.
You are reminding me of all sorts of things from elementary school about myself and other students, the things that they would do, because they're other students, my friends, and I knew exactly where they're coming from. Um, but yeah, these are things that everyone either has experienced or are experiencing now. And it doesn't matter if you're 6 years old or if you're 60 years old, right? It,
Yes.
I'm sure that there's still things for you that we don't want to call it an imposter syndrome, but you have a little bit of that self doubt, because I know I do.
Oh yes, yes, and I think that will always be with us. I mean, because there's our mind. There's a tendency in us to right away look around and compare ourselves to everybody else in the room.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, this is a strange thing, is that it's difficult for us, or many people, it's difficult for them to accept a compliment. So, as an example, somebody says, "You look good today," or "Boy, that was really good. You wrote a really good story." I don't know. I don't think so. Instead of saying thank you, you're like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
We bombard ourselves with this negativity.
Yes, we have to
So,
be really aware of what we're thinking. I now profess. I go. We need to start thinking about what we're thinking about.
mm,
So it's not, and it's not a play on words. Really, we have to just constantly ask ourselves, what am I thinking on a regular basis? Because oftentimes we are in such a negative mode. We're bombarding ourselves with doubt and shame or whatever, or insecurities, and we just go through our day without even realizing what we're doing to ourselves.
yeah, it's almost like it's instinctively we're doing that, even though I don't know if it's an instinct, but we have put it into our
Unconsciously, I think
brain.
we're doing it all day long. And so now I tell people, I said, get your phone out, put your phone on an alarm every hour. When you hear that little alarm go off, no matter what you're doing, just ask yourself, what am I thinking? Just simple,
Yeah.
just that simple. Because at that moment, you ask yourself, what am I thinking? If that thought is a negative thought, do a little switch, and then just move on with your day. And then
Ah,
the next hour when you hear that buzzard, and so that's just to get you into the habit of asking yourself, what are you thinking? Just to check in with yourself. So
I like that. It's I know. Again, I'm going to use that word instinctively, are negative on ourselves, but we oftentimes can compliment somebody else. and help others get to wherever they are going to attain whatever it is, but we can't do it for ourselves. So it is a good idea to stop, take a breath,
Mm-hmm.
and ask yourself that question.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I like that what you're saying. So this is so important. I'm going to throw it out there one more time, folks. You can always, and I encourage you to go to armidaespinosa.com. I'll make sure I have it in the show notes because these are things that, again, are with us every single day.
Yes. And I'm sure we have thousands of those thoughts that we don't even pay attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would you think, because you just had me thinking just now, and I am listening to you too. I'm paying attention, but I'm thinking, would procrastination kind of sort of fall into this too, where you postpone because you doubt or anything like that?
Oh, definitely. I'm a good procrastinator. I do it well.
How are we going to break you out of that habit?
and and it goes back to what I'm thinking because I will be thinking I know I have a list of things to do and I don't want to do any of them, right? Because it's pushing me out of my comfort zone. So I'd rather not reach out to that principal. I'd rather not reach out to that organization. I'd rather not, right? And so I literally have to tell so then when I'm checking in, I'm thinking, what are you doing? Stop it, you know?
Is that why I have a backlog of things to do?
And it's so funny because once I do it, I feel really good.
Yeah.
I feel really good
Yes.
about it.
That's the thing. You if you just do it, at least I think for me thinking about it is, if you just do it, there is a sense
Silver,
of
silver
accomplishment.
lining.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nike had it well. Just do it.
Exactly. Swoosh. Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it.
Is that trademarked or anything? I hope. You said that four-letter word, Nike. I didn't.
Well, a little promotion.
That's right. They should be promoting you and I, not us to them. um, as we were saying at the top of the hour too, that this really has no barrier, meaning that there's no demographic or age barrier. So we're talking about young kids a lot. How about people in the workforce right now? Because I think throw this into the mix. People in the workforce, but at this situation, there's a lot of uncertainty in things, and that comes down to work. Am I going to have a job? What am I going to do? How am I going to ask for a raise? How am I going to do? And then you doubt yourself. Is there anything in the professional business world how we can personally change our mind shift, or mindset?
Yeah, and it goes back to again checking in with what you're thinking, right? Because if you're thinking, I want to promote, I deserve a promotion, I'm going to go in, right? And then your mind is playing with you, right? Because your mind is going, you don't deserve it. There's others that have been there longer. You should be thankful you have a job.
Oh, that's what I say.
And so when you check in with yourself and you catch yourself beating yourself up with doubt, then you could just a minor switch, like I deserve it, I've worked hard, and I'm going to do it. And so just those little comments to yourself to help you push through it. And that is applicable with everything in life, not just with children, in their world, but with our adults, because really our children are listening to how our adults are dealing with issues. And if a child is listening to their parents saying, I don't deserve it, I haven't, I don't have the knowledge that I need to. So the child is hearing their parents negatively talk to themselves, because parents will say a lot of that stuff out loud. And so in turn, their children learn that behavior, and they learn that mode of addressing, challenges in their own lives. So the thought about checking what you're thinking about on a daily basis. I would get up in the morning and I'd tell myself, okay, today I'm going to be so alert. I'm going to be checking in with myself on what I'm thinking throughout the day. Then I'd get up, take a shower, have breakfast, go to work, and it would never occur to me again until at night when I was laying in bed and I was thinking, oh, I forgot to check in. It's like, oh God, well, the whole day went and the thousands of thoughts came through my head and I forgot, so for us, as adults, we need to get into the habit of constantly checking in. And that's, in relationship to our job, in relationship to our relationships with others, in relationship to our community, just constantly checking in on what you're thinking about so that you could reframe or restate it in a positive mode that will support you and make you feel good about going forward and asking for that promotion.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, please. I want to think that this is something that we ourselves have to do. Somebody else can't do this for us. We have to do it ourselves. Is that
Yes.
is that fair to say?
Yes, I would definitely say, because nobody knows what's going on in your head. You're the only one that knows that. So
Yeah.
when I speak to teachers and to administrators and counselors now, I said nobody knows what's going on. You're the only one. And so hence you are the only one that can change it. Because
Yeah.
no matter what your loved one tells you, like, oh honey, you deserve that promotion, you've worked really hard. While those words are impactful, more impactful is what you tell yourself.
Yep. As we said, it's we are so good at putting ourselves down, and we are so good at deflecting the compliments.
Yes.
So it's hard to accept the compliments.
Yes.
So, all right, this has been a real good education in a counseling session. uh, I think we really have just had a good flow of this conversation to really cover what impacts the negative self-talk has on us, and we've kind of addressed the hidden crisis of having doubt in ourselves.
Yes.
And how we're going to really boost our self-esteem. But I was wondering if there's one thing that we could jump back to the very, very beginning. How do we welcome or befriend that imposter syndrome?
Well, I think what happens is that little voice pops in when it senses that we're in crisis. like like when the teacher had me recite my ABCs and I got stuck at G, and that little voice popped in, right? Like out of nowhere. Like, oh, crisis mode. Like, I need to do something to protect her. So I think our voice, that voice that is in all of us, our inner voice, it's going to do what it's going to do to keep you safe. Emotionally safe, physically safe. It's going to do whatever it can. It's going to start figuring out a way to keep you safe in all areas. If you start to physically, your body starts to send messages to your inner self that alarms, the alarms are going off, right? Like crisis mode. I don't know what comes after G, right? So the voice figures out something, right? And so, when the voice said to me, like, just do the best you can, it wasn't trying to harm me. I didn't, it wasn't, it was just figuring out a way to get me through what I was going to be, with the challenges that I was facing, right?
Yeah,
So
like you said, it's keeping you safe.
it's keeping me safe, right? So, now had I known what was going on in my head and the fact that I could say to myself, okay, yeah, I don't know my alphabet. I got stuck at G, but I can learn it, or what can I do to learn it? Then, then I could start thinking to myself, okay, voice, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. You're telling me to do the best that I can on my own. But you know what? This is bigger than me. I'm not going to be able to figure out to learn on my own. I'm going to need help. And so I'm going to put you aside, and I'm going to ask for help. So
And
befriending our voice, knowing that it's going to do what it can to keep you safe at all costs, but that you ultimately have the decision. You ultimately say whether you're going to listen to it or take a different route. I wish I had taken a different route in first grade.
but you wouldn't be here
I wouldn't
where
be
you are
here.
today. It built character.
Oh my
No,
God. It didn't build character.
it's
So
you know
yeah, so
it's
befriending our inner voice, and knowing that, it's just trying to keep us safe, but
yeah.
we can take a step back and analyze the situation and then decide how we want to move forward.
That's well said. And I want to add real quick is, you're a former educator, you still do education. Parents are educators
Yes.
because they have the children. And I would like to just add that, oftentimes parents or adults, educators, unknowingly put that doubt into children by saying stop, don't, rather than I look at it as stop or don't, and then an explanation. "Oh, you're gonna get hurt, so stop. You're gonna get hurt. Make sure you don't do it like that, or don't put your finger in the fire." Rather
Yes.
than stop, don't, and then those words are so much in my head. I think that it's ingrained, and as you grow older, there's that memory recall. You want to do something, but you hear that word from an authoritarian person, don't. You're like, something is going to happen, don't. So I'm not going to do it.
Yes. Yes. And so ultimately, we have just given into the voice, that inner voice,
Mm-hmm.
without taking a step back and analyzing the situation, right?
Yeah.
We have just fallen into the habit, the routine of listening to it. Oh no, don't, no, 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 mm-mm. And without justification, kind of in an auto mode, if you will.
Yes. And folks, break out of the box. You've heard that many, many times. It's okay. It's okay within reason. Just don't do anything that's going to harm somebody else.
I mean, take a step back and think about the ramifications,
Yes.
and the ramifications could be, if you're not gonna push yourself to asking for that raise, well then be content with where you're at. And that's the ramifications. And so there's like, are you content? And I'm not content. Then the only way out of this is if you go in and ask for that raise. And the worst thing that could happen is they say no. But guess what? They could say yes. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking 50-50 here, right? So why not take the chance and get out of that comfort zone and push yourself through?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Um, this is, like I said, a few minutes ago, this has been a great therapy counseling session. This is really, really good. And can you let everybody know once again the name of your book,
Yes.
where they can go,
Yes.
and what they can expect out of the book? And
Sure.
yeah.
So the book is Brave Lolis Learns English. And Lolis came from, my mom's name was Dolores. And so Lolis is an abbreviation of that. And my mom had passed away, so I wanted to honor her by putting her name in the title. But it could be found on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, on my website at armidaespinosa.com. And so if they buy the book, whether they buy the book at Amazon or Barnes and Noble, they go onto my website, and there is coloring pages for their children, or bookmarkers, or guided questions that parents can use to have some deeper conversations with their children. Yeah.
Armida, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this. It's been fun. You're a great guest. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.